talk about how does childhood impact our growth in when we are getting into that teenage or puberty.
Yes, um, I would say that because I had a very secure and stable childhood, my curiosity and my sense of wonder never left me. And like I was talking about with you before this show, when a child goes through abuse or trauma, neglect, it puts a covering over the soul. This is how.
Bracha, welcome to Zest2Live. I'm so excited to have you today, for this conversation. How are you feeling?
Wonderful. Really happy to be here. Thank you.
So, Bracha, there's so many things we're going to talk about today on so many different topics. But everybody starts somewhere, isn't it? That's their where their journey begins, basically. And for me, and I think it's no brainer for you. It's the childhood where the foundation is kept. And specifically, this question is really, I think I should ask, what was your childhood like, and what does childhood impact children when they get older? What is that impact of childhood on children, basically? Why is it so important? So can you talk about that?
I I had a really sweet childhood. Um, I grew up in a very simple and loving home. Um, we lived in this tiny apartment, and I don't know, it was a very sweet upbringing. But as I became a teenager, I felt like something was missing. When I began my adolescence, all of a sudden it was like I had an extra consciousness, and I would go around asking, beginning with age 12, what's the purpose of life? What are we doing here? I think it started when I read The Diary of Anne Frank. It got me going, and I started my own diary then. And after that, I just became much more introspective about life and searching for meaning. I searched in different religions, social action, all kinds. I tried everything. I was a big experimenter and very curious. So I was always searching. I felt like something was missing. And in fact, my memoir is a compilation of highlights from my diary, which became a journal. And then I added letters. I filled in the missing pieces, and it tells the story of the beginning of my search and how it became more and more desperate, and and eventually how I was able to fill the emptiness within, which I developed like food addictions along the way, and 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 I didn't understand how when I finally got the spiritual fulfillment that I was searching for, why did the addictions go away? I couldn't understand that one thing had to do with the other until I put the book together. So it's kind of a psychological mystery about what fills that inner emptiness. Why are addictions so widespread? Why do people keep searching desperately for meaning? And how can you bring lasting joy into your life?
You know, you talked about this, my question was, as you talked about the childhood. So, what kind of impact does childhood make when you grow up? Like, I'm talking about the certain conditioning, certain patterns, because,
Yes,
we learn from our parents. Let's be honest. We
yes.
learn from our environment. Kids learn from every single thing that is happening around them. And also, one thing that we have to understand that they learn much faster than adults, things quickly, they understand, but their understanding is very without the foundation. They grasp it quickly, but they don't know the complete depth of it, which the adult knows one subject. Like the adult can know history better than the kid, but he can learn faster if you just teach him, because it's what do you call that, neuroscientific thing. We have more, what do you call that, I keep forgetting the word, that neuroplasticity, yeah. So you have more
Yes.
neuroplasticity as your child. So can you talk about how does childhood impact our growth in when we are getting into that teenage or puberty?
Yes. Um, I would say that because I had a very secure and stable childhood, my curiosity and my sense of wonder never left me. And like I was talking about with you before this show, when a child goes through abuse or trauma, neglect, it puts a covering over the soul. This is how I see that our souls are so pure. It's like a light, a beautiful bright light. And when we go through trauma, it puts like a covering over it so we don't even feel that light anymore. That's what it's like. So as children go through different traumas in their life, they're not shining as beautifully as they are as a child who is
Yeah.
totally curious and open to learning with wonder about this world. So why did I become a children's book writer? Because I still have that part in me. And I try to write the books that I wished I had as a child, books that can teach that child that's wondering and open to the world. What are the secrets to
Open the
happiness
skies.
in life? Yes.
Open the skies.
What exactly? What, what are the secrets to bringing joy? If you know those secrets early on in life, then you have those tools throughout your entire life. We can always get them later, but we're catching up. But giving it to children from the very beginning, giving them a sense that they are spiritual beings that need spiritual nourishment in addition to being bodies, that changes the whole perspective. My parents were not into spirituality. They were very sweet people, but that's why I felt something was missing. That there was no recognition that I was a soul in need of spiritual nourishment as much as we need physical nourishment every single day.
So, your writing, often explores this theme, what you talked about, that is spirituality and everyday life. And you sort of bring that closeness and connect them together. Like, how can we bring spirituality into our everyday life? It's not like a ritual thing, but it's there, like you are walking, you are talking, you are spiritual. Every moment you are in that zone, right? That you are living it. Because as you talked
Yes,
about it, that we are a spiritual being. Everybody, it's not like a specific person is just spiritual, others. Everybody is capable and everybody is, but they don't know, and some know. That is
yes.
the difference only. So how do you personally, like, I mean, define spirituality, and how does it manifest it in your, like, in your work?
Beautiful. Spirituality is the spark of the divine inside of all of us. We all have it. It's breathed into us. Um, and that's why the breath is so important too. Actually, in Hebrew, the word for breath and the word for soul are almost the same words, nishima and neshama, because it's our breath of life is our soul. That is our essence. That is our core. And we're put in this clothing. That's our bodies. You can consider it a house that the soul is housed in, or it's the clothing for the soul. We're put in this world to interact with this material world and bring out all the sparks. Bring out all the sparks of divinity in everything. That's what we're doing here.
You talked about writing many sort of like 42 plus books about children, and that's a lot of books, to be honest. But even though if it's children, it's a lot of books. So 42 plus books for children, and then you wrote your memoir, which I don't think is targeted to children's, but more to adults, and you know but what did you learn, like, when you were writing for children? What did, because I mean, 42 books, that means you must have spent a lot of time with them, understood them, their psychology, even though you're not a kid, you were around them always. You are aware, like, what those children goes through. And different countries have different kind of upbringing. You are aware of that, even though it's the same kind of a body and things, but the upbringing can be a different based on the culture, based on the way they are being taught, is what they grow. And obviously individual experiences that people come, so these all influence a child's upbringing. But what did you learn when you wrote so much? What is those patterns that you found that are there in almost most of the children that you saw? And what did you learn from them that you could grow yourself, even though you were writing for children, you could grow as an adult? And that's in your memoir. How did you connect it all of this? I'm trying to understand that perspective.
Yeah, I love it. Okay. Like, I write naturally for children. I don't really enjoy writing for adults. It comes naturally to me, and this sounds funny, but I feel like I identify as a 6-year-old boy. That's who I feel like I am. And all my books, mainly the main character is a 6-year-old boy who's discovering things about the world, and this boy is sharing that wisdom, what he's learned, with everybody else. So it's empowering to children because I speak in a child's voice, and it's really my voice. Like I said, so much of me has remained open to knowledge and curiosity. So that sense of joy and wonder that's still a big part of me appears in the books. I lost it during my teenage years, but I found it again when I was able to nourish my hungry soul with the spiritual wisdom I was craving.
And start living your best life.
So, like, even my memoir, it I'm going to hold it up. It's called Nourish the Soul, and it's called Filling the Emptiness Within. That's what it's about. But I don't write long books. I just compiled it. So my books are really short. And this is my newest book. Don't read this book. This book took me 30 years to write because I had the
30
idea
years
for this. Yeah, this is a short picture book. I had the idea for the book many years ago. I had almost the whole book written. But like you said, I did not have the last piece of wisdom until 2 years ago to to make the surprise ending to this book.
completed. Completed.
Exactly.
Yeah, because the
Exactly. It was part of my life journey. I was always hoping for it. I kept knowing this book was meant to be in the world, but I couldn't finish it. I didn't have the right ending. And suddenly, when it came to me, I knew the book was finally ready. So what is the surprise ending? This is something that children can learn and adults can learn, because obviously it took me decades to learn this important wisdom.
so it's a
It's,
very special book for you, I believe. It's a very special book.
yeah, it's exactly. It's called Don't Read This Book because it's written in the voice of that voice inside our heads, the inner critic that's always putting us down, making us miserable all day long. We all have that voice in our heads, and it's totally normal. And the more we recognize that that voice is there, the better. Because when we recognize it, then we can have power over it. So this book gives young children the power, and of course, for any age. That's something about a children's book, people don't realize that it gets its message across to every single age, because the youngest children read it, and adults read it to the children, and grandparents read it to the children, and even teenagers pick up the book when no one's looking. So
as a be-
everybody,
as a bedtime story, or as you're trying to teach the kids, and
exactly.
this is the way you have to give kids, because kids don't have a lot of attention span these days, like the small
Yes,
kids, they like, so they are like very restless, if I have to use that word. They don't have that
yes,
patience, so you have to make them learn in a very fun and engaging way. If you use the old school way, people are like, the kids are not interested, because these days 2-year-old and 5-year-olds have iPads and all of those things, gadgets, so they don't want, like, so you have to give them in a very different manner, so they are interested, invested, because the more curiously they are listening, the more they will catch up and understand it. And trust me, it takes only one time. If they hear it correctly, they know it, because you don't need to tell them 50 times like an adult needs to hear it. If an adult, until he hears 50 times the same thing, then only it sticks in his head. That's a problem with adults, because we have so many thoughts and layers. Kids don't have that many thoughts all the time, 10,000 thoughts like us. They have thoughts a lot also, but not like us. They can go into meditative state very easily, because they are not worried about future and past too much, like we are,
beautiful,
our work is there, our family, all of these things will conjure our mind up with so many vices, if you have to say, not just one, many vices within our mind. So you talked about this book. You said it is a very, like, the intersecting that personal journey and spiritual journey. What have you put in this book from yourself? What is your contribution apart from that voice? What has this your journey has impacted this book? What is in this book that connects with that philosophical, spiritual, and, if I have to say, personal journey of yours in this book? I'm trying to
yes.
understand this book a little bit more from you.
Okay, sure. The way that the voice gets us miserable all day long is getting us to focus on what we're missing. It's telling us, oh, you're lacking that, you're missing that. If you just have that, then you'll be happy. So the minute we realize that, and can you imagine teaching this to young children? This took me ages to learn. So when we realize that's how it's getting us miserable, we use that same trick and we turn its tricks around. So we say, oh my gosh, it's that voice trying to get me miserable by focusing on what I'm missing. Instead, I'm going to have gratitude and be happy with what I have right now. We take the power away from that voice and we regain power that minute. And what does the voice do? It sneaks away. It melts like the Wicked Witch of the West right away, like it just disappears, and it comes back in a new disguise. For sure, it's going to come back, but right then and there, you've got happiness. And by doing that, you are gaining your gratitude
You're
muscles.
prepared.
You're getting
You're
the what?
prepared. You're prepared.
Yes,
You're
you're
prepared.
prepared for
You're
the
prepared
next
as
time.
well.
Exactly, exactly. So
Because
uh,
unless it can overpower you really easily.
it can overpower you so easily. But the more awareness you have, the stronger you get. That it's not you. It's this one voice in your head. And what was the wisdom I didn't have until recently? That voice is also a good thing. This is what I didn't realize. That voice is also being given to you. It's like dumbbells. Here, I have some right here. It's like this. Oh my gosh. It's like it's like this weight that you lift, and when you lift it, you get stronger and stronger. So basically it's like your own personal trainer. That voice, it's specifically designed for your own weaknesses to get you to focus on what you particularly lack. And when you lift it off, that's how you grow your gratitude muscles. That is amazing. It actually doesn't want you to listen to it. It really doesn't. It's there to get you stronger. It's there to get you to push it off and grow your muscles. That is amazing. That I did not know until recently. And that's what I've learned through my life, through my own struggles. And that's what I'm sharing with very young children all the way up. It's so helpful. Parents say to me, they say to the child, oh, that little voice is talking to you. And then they can suddenly get the awareness and overcome it. It's amazing.
You know, I've seen kids. You have seen kids, that, and the kids in the time when you were a kid, like and almost when you growed up in your puberty, that time the kids were so different. The circumstances were so different. Kids are changing. We are evolving in a certain sense, but we are evolving in the wrong direction. I feel sometimes, because I feel the kids had so much more curiosity before. Nowadays, if they're in the KG, at the very start of the school, they are curious, but really soon I feel their curiosity is gone. They feel, I know everything, and I don't want to learn anymore. And I mean, this is not the case when at least you were a kid. I can understand because I've talked to people. This was not the case, but these days the curiosity is not that much, and they are not interested so easily. You give them anything, they are not interested. They are demanding more. They were demanding. Kids are demanding, but they were not so demanding, and so stubborn like they are now. I mean, kids are always like that, but not so much. And even though, they don't do what he was, so it's very different now. And this is happening in the wrong time where they should grow more and listen to some other stuff too, but they are absolutely not interested. And curiosity is also not there. So let's forget all of those bad things, but even the curiosity to learn anything is not there. They just want to be on their devices all the time, just do nothing. This is not how persons grow. And that's why there are so many teenagers today. But I'm really sad to say this, most are dead bodies, in the sense they are living but not living, because they are just, I don't know what to say, that because they are not ready to grow anymore. They have stopped growing very long time ago. So what happened, in the middle, Burka? What happened in the middle? I'm trying to understand.
Yes, what I feel the main problem is taking things for granted in life. Abundance, like a sense of entitlement. I call it an entitlement epidemic. And people are not appreciating the simple things in life. But when we teach people, and they're never satisfied and they're never happy, when we teach people gratitude skills, they become much happier people. That's those are the essential skills. Those Gratitude is the secret to happiness. And that when we teach children early on in life, it completely changes their perspective. Um, I say that people are drowning in knowledge, but they're starving for wisdom. They are still starving for wisdom. They don't have the basic wisdom about
Intuition.
how, yes, and how to live a
Intuition.
joyful life.
So, you know, how has your background in, because you had a background in psychology, if I'm getting that right. So
Yes,
how has your background in psychology influenced your, like, what you call approach to addressing spirituality and personal growth in your writing? How has that impacted it?
that's a great question. Okay, so I graduated from Harvard. I was like just about the top student in the psychology department at Harvard. And
Harvard, like the topmost, you know
yeah,
you were
I
there,
I
so you have seen the most best.
yeah, and I went there because I was searching for the best. I was searching for the ultimate wisdom in life. Like my parents were like, "Why are you going there?" Like that's not what they had in mind. Like they were very simple kind of people, but I studied so much. I was learning about everything, so I got really good marks and I got in there. And Then I went on to medical school because I wanted to be a psychiatrist, because I was always fascinated by the mind-body connection. But while I was at Harvard and while I was at medical school, I was getting sicker and sicker in terms of the food addictions. So I looked really successful on the outside, but I was getting more and more miserable on the inside, because as much as I was learning, it was not nourishing my hungry soul. And I tried looking for spirituality at Harvard too. I tried many times, but that didn't happen. So after Harvard, after medical school, I was actually in medical school for 1 year, and I had a 6 week break, and I came to Israel for 6 weeks, and I got to learn about my heritage, which I really did not grow up with. I grew up culturally knowing I was Jewish, but I got to really learn about this spirituality, which I didn't even know was a part of Judaism. So I began to learn in a deep level as a late beginner, as a young adult. And that's when my whole life changed. And I did not go back to medical school. I stayed in Israel for 10 years. Um, I met my husband here who was on a similar path. And then we started having children here. Eventually, we went back to the States and we lived there. And now that our children are grown and they have their own families, my husband and I have returned to where we first met. So that's our story. And I forgot what I was saying. But anyway, that's how that all came about. So yeah, the I forgot what the question was. What was
My
your
question
question?
was like, how did psychology
Yeah.
influence your approach in addressing to
Yes.
spirituality and personal growth in your
Oh
life?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I came and I started learning about spirituality, and I was like, oh my goodness, at Harvard, they're doing studies, $1 million studies to learn what's already in our ancient mystical knowledge. It's not necessary to do this. The knowledge is already there. The ancient wisdom can tell us all these secrets to happiness. It's already there, and that's what I didn't know. And it's all that research and everything. When you think about it, Einstein and the law of thermodynamics, energy is never it's never lost. It's all being recycled. It's all coming from one energy source, and we're all connected. All of this spiritual teachings was all here, but I was never taught that. And I was never taught to be grateful. So I wasn't grateful, and I became more of a cynical person there, like everybody else, just expecting. And instead of really appreciating all the small gifts in life, the constant abundance of blessings that we all have right now. So that's how my life changed.
I talked about this, like, and I think you agreed to this when we talked before, that humans are the most ungrateful creatures on this planet, and as you talked about it, can you talk about those blessings we have in all our life, but we are not grateful for? Because,
Yeah.
and it was, this is a Louvo original podcast, and, in our app, we talk a lot about the importance of gratitude. Why is gratitude so important? So, can you talk about why should we? Some people say, I don't have anything. I'm not rich. Why should I be grateful? Why I need to be grateful? What is this? So can you talk about that? I'm really.
Yeah. Yes, we have a saying, in fact, an ancient saying, who is rich? Those who are happy with what they have. That's real wealth. It's not, when I went to Harvard, I thought that was it. And I met the richest, wealthiest people that power the children of the most powerful. And I realized there's nothing there. There's a story in my memoir when I was invited to this exclusive garden party, and even those people were searching for something more. I was there with these all the big shots, and They didn't have it. They didn't feel wealthy in life. They wanted more. They felt like they were lacking
They
too.
were actually the most poor persons there. They were actually like the, even though they were rich outsidely, inherently they were so poor, and you could see that, you know.
Exactly. That you know that with famous people, you know that with movie stars, these are not the happiest people, but we have the chance. It's harder for them because they've learned to take so much for granted. The best way is, it's something called the pleasure ladder, which I learned from a rabbi who's no longer alive, Rabbi Noach Weinberg. This is what I learned that summer when I came to Israel that changed my life. The pleasure ladder has 5 rungs
Please,
on the pleasure ladder.
your mic is, can you adjust your mic a little bit? I can hear so
Is
much
this
air
good?
noise from it. Just take
I
it a
don't
bit
know. Is
far.
this
Take it a bit far. Take it a
far
bit far
away?
with
Like
you.
that?
Yeah,
Like this?
little closer, like in the medium bins. Yeah, a little. Yeah.
Okay, how about
Say
that?
something now.
Yeah, right
Say
now, is
something
that
now.
good? Now?
Keep saying with the more energy, more loudly. Say something loudly.
Okay. So Rabbi Rabbi Noach Weinberg was the rabbi that taught me about the pleasure ladder that summer, which really changed my life. So there's 5 rungs on the pleasure ladder, and they correspond to our 5 fingers to show us we have the power to bring pleasure into our life at any moment. It's within our power. And these 5 levels also correspond to the 5 levels of the human soul. The lowest level of the soul is the part that's attached to the body. So we get pleasure from all the natural physical pleasures, healthy food, natural foods, being in nature, movement. It could be yoga, it could be dancing, gardening, running, swimming, music. All these natural physical pleasures, they fill us up spiritually and physically when we experience them with gratitude. That's how we go up the pleasure ladder. The next
Please take it
level
a bit
up is
farther. Still,
like
it's still
this.
coming. You take it.
How about
Yeah,
love?
I
Can
don't
I
know
go up?
when we started. You know that was perfect. And you just did a bit. Maybe then
Okay.
change that.
Is this good now?
Say
So,
something like in loudly.
okay.
Say something
Okay,
loudly.
sure. Now I'm going to talk about the second level up. The next level up is called love. Now, love, you would think, how could it be empowering? It's dependent on somebody else. But love, according to the ancient mystical wisdom, is focusing on the virtues of another. And we could do that at any moment. Like even in solitary confinement in prison, a person could think of a grandmother that once did a kindness for them, and they're filled with a warm emotional feeling of love. So that's an even greater pleasure. Each level up brings more connection to a physical, natural thing in the world, to another being, and then meaning. When we do something meaningful in the world, good and meaningful. I was on another show, and the host, he said he was feeling miserable and lonely, and he ate 2 slices of pizza, and he was about to plow through the whole box of pizza. Someone knocks on his door. His neighbor needs his help for 2 minutes. He comes back. He doesn't want the pizza anymore. What changed? He he just did something meaningful for somebody else, and he could put the rest of the pizza in the fridge for the next day. He filled up with pleasure, but it didn't have to be food. We overeat because we want the pleasure to keep lasting. But really, when we realize we just get stuck on our addiction, it doesn't have to be that food. It could be, once we recognize there's an abundance of ways to bring pleasure into our lives at any moment, with a natural pleasure, with focusing on the virtues of another, doing something meaningful.
We are pleasure seeking species, right? We are
Yes,
seeking species. And this is what you said, like once we have experienced love, in the sense we are in love with someone physically, in that sense, then you don't feel hunger. Why? Because you're satisfied with that energy of love, so you don't feel
yes,
physically too hungry. And when you're
yes,
depressed, you eat a lot, you drink a lot, because you want to fill
yes,
yourself with something else that will fill yourself up. And you're right, we overeat because of that.
exactly. Why do we do that? We feel disengaged, we feel alienated, lonely, separate, disconnected. This is how we bring the connection back. So, higher than meaning, believe it or not, is surprising is creativity because we're putting something uniquely meaningful from ourselves into the world, a uniquely beautiful part of ourselves we're sharing out into the world. We're connecting in an even deeper way. So when we're like in the creative zone, like you were saying, we don't feel like eating or sleeping. We're on such a high when we're in the middle of creating.
Energy, like I don't know where this is coming from. I just want to create, create, create. I don't know what is time anymore. I mean, you've surpassed
Time.
that, and this happens at higher levels. That's what you showed the ladder. Like as you reach higher, you
Exactly.
don't have to worry about those external factors of your body. The energy take cares of it. You don't feel hungry, you don't feel easily exhausted. And when you're depressed, this is not proven that you feel more lethargic, you feel more, I don't want to do things. When you're depressed, it takes you into that zone. It sucks the energy out of you as you're depressed,
Yes.
all the time. And that's what depression does to us. So it's a deadly disease, in that sense. But I don't consider it a disease, I consider it a condition rather than a disease. It is just a moment you are in there, and you can come out anytime you have decided, like, this is enough. Now I want to go higher. Now I want to reach the different frequency. So can you talk about the other levels, right? I'm trying to understand this whole ladder so the audience can understand it in a very cohesive way.
Exactly. So we have the lowest level, the natural physical pleasures. Above that is love, meaning, creativity. The highest level is called transcendence, the sense of oneness, the sense of unity. It's when we lift the veils of separation. Like I said, every level brings greater and greater connection because we're feeling disconnected when we're engaged in anxiety, depression, addictions. So this brings us the connection and the pleasure that we're really craving. That's what we're craving. We're not craving the whole container of ice cream, the whole box of chocolate chip cookies. We're craving lasting pleasure. And this is how we get it. Transcendence is when we lift the veil of um, our own limitations and we become something new. We make one crack in our addiction. We break a bad habit by making one crack and doing something differently. It's the most ecstatic feeling. It's a feeling of awesomeness. And also when we, like under a starry sky at night, when we know we're a part of the greater universe, it's that feeling of awe. They've discovered that the feeling of awe and wonder creates the most cells in the body that fights off disease. It's the highest level. So we're at our healthiest
Transcendent.
state. Exactly. Transcendence. We're at our highest state, both physically and spiritually. And what is the price to pay to climb this pleasure ladder? There's only one price, and it's the same price for each level, and that's gratitude. When we experience gratitude, gratitude for another being, gratitude to be able to give back to the world, gratitude for the gifts that we have that we could share, gratitude that we're all a part of this
The
amazing
more you
universe.
are grateful, the more you are grateful, the more you are given to share. And this is a very wrong thing to understand this way. People think if we share more, we're going to lose more. We shouldn't share much. But this is a very wrong notion in the theology of existence. The more you share, the more it gives you. This is the whole secret. The more you give away, the more grateful you are for what you have been giving, the more you start getting. And it happens around the way. This is the secret of the secrets, is this.
Yes.
But you talked about transcendence. I'm trying to understand, are there moments in someone's life where even if they're not that super grateful or super like all of those things, fancy words we have to use, they sometimes experience that state of trance for a moment, even I would say, but the experiences. Can you describe how that moment is of when you are in a transcendence? What does like happens when you are in these higher levels? I'm talking about the higher levels. What happens in these levels?
Yes. Most of us, we spend very little time on the highest levels. We spend more of our time on the three lower levels, but these moments, they don't go away. Like the moment that you were outside, like on a summer evening under that starry sky, it stays with you forever. That is a moment of transcendence when you know you're a part of the greater universe. You can go back to that all the time. That's a pleasure that has never left you. It gives you, you get glimpses into this state of transcendence, and it becomes a part of you forever.
That cannot be taken away from you, and that's what I say. Money can be taken away, respect can be taken away as well, but that knowledge and that experience that you gain, nobody in this world can take away from you. Nobody means nobody can take it. It's there, it's yours to live and enjoy about, you know and you living in Israel. That's what you told. I'm trying to remember. Like you were in Baltimore, in Maryland. That's where you're
Yes,
from, I guess, if I'm
that's
getting that
right.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes,
in there you lived for a long time, and then you studied in Harvard, and then you got to Israel, and right now that's where you're living. I would like to let my listeners know, because this is the time of the world, so it's very significant. And I live in India, and I think around the world, Israel is looked at as a really respected country in technology, in all of those aspects. It's a very small country, but yet really respected, really highly regarded. But these recent days, in during the war, the things have been not in favor of Israel and the country's politics or whatnot. But I'm not trying to get into politics. What I'm trying to understand, what is this war that is happening between Israel and Palestine, like Gaza, sorry. So what is like these things impacting because you are a Jewish, you are living there live, so you know what is going around there more than the media reports in the BBC or CNN. I don't know those channels. You're right there. What is this experience that you're having, and aren't you afraid that you're in the midst of the greatest war, maybe that's unfolding right now in front of your eyes?
yes. And I want to be here because I feel it's a very significant time historically right now, what's happening. Th- This, this country, this this tiny, tiny land, people don't realize it's smaller than the state of New Jersey. It's very tiny, but it is a spiritual vortex in the world. It is it's if you see these ancient maps, you see that Jerusalem is in the center of all the maps of the world. It's amazing. There's something extremely transcendent about this country. We cannot explain it. There's no way to explain it, but it is a very transcendent place, and there's the conflicts here go on and on through the ages, and the Jewish people, their our extermination has been sought throughout the ages as well. And there's a
Exploited.
spiritual reason. Yeah, but right, and it's not like we've only been oppressed. It's that the nations seek to exterminate us completely. It's incredible, and yet we're still here. It's because what do I feel about it? What I've learned is that we really have a mission, and that is to share exactly what I've been sharing on this podcast, that our purpose for being here is to experience gratitude, and we're all connected, and to have, like you said, respect for all human beings. We want to live in peace with our Arab neighbors. We don't want violence. If we put, they say like this, if our neighbors put down their arms, then the wars would stop. But if we put down our arms, we would cease to exist. So so we're just trying to defend ourselves and live in the only country that we feel that is ours to have. So when they tell us, go back to where you came from, I mean, what could we say? Poland? I mean, that wasn't good for us. There's no place, and this is where we believe is our little sanctuary. So that's that's the story in a nutshell from me, from my perspective.
There could be many perspective, many disagreements, many agreements, but at the end of the day, one thing is for certain, that war is never good for anybody. It's the last thing you
Right,
want in any place, any matter, or any culture. Don't
right,
want war, because wars have destroyed more lives, and more
right,
religious wars have destroyed than other wars, because
right,
religious wars are even worse. It's
right,
the worst. And when you talked about Israel's history, like the Jewish history, it's really troubled, right? It's always been troubled, and the
right.
whole reason of Jews being oppressed is because of the crucifixion of Christ. That's the whole deal of it. Unless,
It's one
that's
of
the
the
only
reasons.
mistake Jews, because it's one of the biggest mistakes that the Jews, in that sense, committed. The Jews have been, in that sense, unless Jews are the most smartest people, they have gotten the most Nobel prizes in that sense. And I consider them, that like the Jewish society, to be really highly intellectually, highly regarded. But the whole deal of this oppression has really changed the trajectory of the whole culture regarding the Jews these days. But let's not get into that. Let's stick to our conversation without getting into too much of a
I
political
I
or
just
religious conflict.
Right.
Beyond.
I just want to say what you said about Jewish people being so smart. It's not it, to me. What I've learned is that it has to do with the connection to that ancient wisdom. That's what it is. We cherish it. It's our treasure, and that it's that connection that we experience with gratitude. It's just flowing through the channels from the source of all wisdom, of infinite intelligence. It's not like, oh, we're smarter. No, it's the connection to that
You're
source.
connected to the roots. You're connected to your roots. You
Right,
haven't lost it like some other
right,
cultures did. They lost their roots. I mean, if I have to be very honest, India has such ancient roots, like what
right,
Jerusalem has, much older than they have, but they are started to losing it. If India remembers its roots, one of the biggest spiritual lands in the history, and they're still
right,
surviving, at least, which is a big part. But I think there were three, four cultures only, and only a few of them survived. One of them is obviously the Hinduism, like the Sanatan culture, and before that there was the what do you call that? The Egyptian culture, which extincted. And then came the Jewish and the Christianity, but they are so recent in the history. The Jewish culture is a bit older, but the Christianity and Islam is very new. So I don't consider them to be very older in terms of the historical context. Maybe you can talk about the religious. That's another thing. I'm talking about the religious context, how old they are in terms of the book. It's just 2,000 years, just very less. Buddha came himself 4-5 thousand years ago. Then
right.
6,000 you go, so we go back to Mahabharata and all of those. So it's a very long chronological history. But anyway, we go that you come from the United States. You have been to Harvard, and all of these. Religion and science have always been in conflict. And modern science has even increased this conflict to the next level, because it has raised even bigger questions, disproven a lot of believed theories by so many cultures, including the Jewish culture, including the Christian culture, including every culture, every religion has been disproven in some of their theories because of advancement in science. And some of the theories are being proved as well with science. I would have to say some of these theories are being proved. What role do you think science plays, I think, in depending like on our understanding of spirituality? What role science plays in it, and both personally and a broader social level, what role does science play in understanding
Yes,
spirituality?
great question. And I also want to say about what you were saying before. Many Jewish people have lost their roots. I had lost my roots, and that's how I knew something was missing. So it's in every culture, it's possible to lose your roots. So what do I feel about science? See, I love science. I was pre-med at Harvard. I took many science. I've always been fascinated by that connection of science and spirituality. My understanding is, like I was saying about the first law of thermodynamics, energy is never lost or destroyed. It's always being recycled. We have a symbiotic relationship. So when Einstein came up with his most basic theory, E equals mc squared, he is showing that mass and energy are related, and their relationship has to do with the speed of light squared. This is fascinating. This means that we look like we're physical, but we're mainly spiritual. Most of us is empty space. Every atom is mostly made up of empty space, electrons orbiting around a tiny nucleus. What is that? What is the ethereal? What's in that ethereal space? In other words, this physical world is not all there is, and it transforms into energy. So, in other words, spirituality and science, as science continues to explore, then it it makes spirituality more and more clear. One of my books is called The Invisible Book. It's about it's about all the things we believe in that are invisible. We believe in electromagnetism. A magnet can pick up a paperclip. Why? It's invisible. There's an invisible force. The book drops. There's invisible gravity pulling it down. Our thoughts, our feelings. There's so much we believe in that's invisible. So it's not far fetched to believe that we too are invisible. Our essence, our roots, at our core, we are invisible spiritual beings. That's what I'm teaching children early on so they don't have to go searching in addictions, in anxiety, painful experiences. Know that from the beginning of life, and then you can nourish your hungry soul with gratitude. Experiencing this world, it was put here for our pleasure. All these natural pleasures. It could have been that we didn't need to eat at all, or it could have been a tasteless pill. No, we were given an orange. An orange, our fruit, they're all green. They're camouflaged in with the leaves. And then when they're bright and beautiful, they become the most beautiful colors when they're ripe and ready for us. So they're beautiful to look at, bright orange. They smell beautiful. They taste, they're juicy and sweet, and they're protected with this peel that keeps the juiciness in for months. And when you finish
Protected.
eating, perfected, exactly. It's like individually packaged. One of my books is about that too. It's called Hashem's Candy Store, about all the candy, the natural candy. So when we finish, we are left with seeds, the seeds of eternity. They become they could become an infinite amount of trees, an infinite amount of oranges. It's unbelievable. If we mindfully eat an orange with gratitude, oh my gosh, it's such a spiritual experience.
You would see it is, yes, it is like you would see that how much I have been given and how beautiful this world is. That's the moment you would start appreciating. Because if you just eat a well ripe banana, a well ripe orange, and the taste of it, you could feel the gratitude because the whole existence is grateful, but we are not. But the moment we realize also that how much is available to us, the very moment we are grateful, but we only think
Beautiful.
we are only grateful. We think we have material things. You have a great home, great car. That's when we think we are going to be grateful. But even then, we are not grateful. Even then, we think when we can get more, when we can be number one, and even the person who becomes number one is not happy because you can never be until you know it is enough. The moment you know it is enough, you are grateful. That's it. Because he says, I don't need anything. I have everything. Thank you so much. But that thank you never really comes. People go to the temple to ask for more. That's what they are there. Actually, beggars. They can never be go to God like a king. Can you do that? That's what I say to my friends. Can you go to God like a king who has everything? He's not there for all of those material things. He's there to bow down to you, to your greatness. But he is a king. He has everything on the material. He has sorted all of those out. He does not care. He's not there to ask for such small things. And I would like to bring a story in here because we are in that zone. And this is a question I would like to ask you, and it's like it's a very not a tricky question. Perka, if tomorrow you wake up and your doorbell rings and you open the door and God is standing right there. I mean, the way Jewish people imagine God, but still, I would say God is standing right there. This is a very kiddish question. What would you ask Him for if God is standing right there in front of you?
Oh, even more gratitude. That's it. That's it. I just want to be filled with even more gratitude. That's it. I mean, like you said, everything is given to us in loving compassion. Even the war, even the missiles coming down here. We never know when another missile, we're still getting missiles like every day. It's unbelievable. Even that. Everything is a gift. We just have to appreciate it. Seriously, all the difficult things in our life are given to us. The challenges are all for our own good. We each have our own personal trainer. Everything is created with love and compassion. We've gone really far off. We we forget that we've been put in this amazing garden. Amazing garden.
So that's what my question was like. If God is there in front of you, would you still need to ask Him that what you need gratitude, or you have been you are completed? And that's what I say, that once you are completed, you don't need anything because you have gotten everything. And that is the ultimate realization. That is the ultimate gratitude, that I don't need. I already have it. I already have everything that I want, everything that I need. Everything that I need is available to me. It is my intention that is stopping it. My intention to be grateful, my intention to go to that higher level in the
Yes.
transcendent states. You are stopping yourself, nobody else is. This is the first secret to understand, that there is no
Yes.
stoppage. And specifically when it comes to spiritual matters, I would like to tell you, nobody is stopping you. Other matters, I don't know. Maybe if you're trying to learn things, maybe someone is stopping you. I cannot say. If you're trying to grow rich, some of your friends might be stopping you. They don't do this, don't do that. But when it comes to this matter of spirituality and personal growth, nobody is stopping you. Nobody is there really to stop you. You are the one problem. The ego is the problem. And ego, I would like to, this thing that the inner voice we associate sometimes with ego. Would you like to clarify some of these theologies for adults? Like, what is this voice that hurts us the most, that we're trying to calm down? Noise.
That's that that's that inner critic. That's that voice. When we start thinking like that ego, then like it could people talk about writer's block, or oh, I can't write, I feel too pressured. It's because we're not feeling, we're just channels. The ego gets in the way. If you recognize, you open to the channel, open to the energy flowing, then you also, you don't feel that on top of the world feeling when a new book gets published either. You feel grateful. Thank you so much for allowing these thoughts to come through me into the world.
So, can you share with us something, I would like to ask you, because you've seen a long life. It's not like you are just here like 20 years ago. You have lived that long life. You have been to many places, I believe. Have you seen or experienced like something that you would like to say that is the most inspiring or transformative experience that you had in your life that has impacted you so much and you would like to share to the listeners?
The, the most the most inspiring experience I talk about is getting over my food addictions, because it was a very hard part of my life. I really didn't want to keep living. And I know other people get to that point where life feels meaningless. My life here, I had been at Harvard Medical School. You'd think, but no, without that understanding of life, without the gratitude, life is meaningless. And so that's what I'm spending my time doing now, trying to help other people be grateful. I feel it's the most important thing I could do, and especially to help instill that in children, to give them the skills to do that from the very beginning of life. See that you could have a joyful life once you get these skills down. I learned that it takes 400 repetitions, like you were saying, to develop a new habit as an adult, especially. But it takes just 10 to 20 repetitions and you've got it down if you do it in a joyful way. And that's what happens. And with children's books, they keep reading the books over and over again. So they really instill it in their minds. They engrave it on their souls. And when
And they
we,
remember it for a long time. They remember it for a long
exactly,
time.
exactly. So when we learn these things joyfully through gratitude, that's it. When we, when we start practicing gratitude, it's like you're on this gravelly road and it feels weird and it just doesn't feel normal. But the more you do it, you create these grooves, and the neural pathways, like you said about neuroplasticity, your brain gets filled with gratitude neural pathways. So it becomes easier and easier to be a grateful person the more that you practice it.
You know, in the Jewish culture, there is one thing that they still have, they haven't lost, is that family is very important. And I mean, I have to say that someone might be thinking family is important in every culture, even now, but really, I mean, if you go to United States, how important is family really? You have to understand, for a lot of kids, they don't care. But if you go and really see Israel or like the Jewish culture of family, like the joint family culture is very popular. Being together in community support is a lot more. In America, there is no community support. In the UK, in the Western culture, there's not a lot of those community support. There is, but not at such a great extent as you go in Israel, India, or I mean, China also has a little bit, but not that much. But India and Israel, these cultures have a lot of community support, and family is a big part of not just bonding but also growing spiritually. And this has been not understood really well in the West, that you can grow within your family spiritually too, not just from outside other agencies, your family itself. And that is the best place to grow. That's what I have been told by some people. But you are a mother, you are a grandmother. So, how has that impacted your spiritual and philosophical values? Because you have seen those things, you have brought up kids up to their adultery. Like, how is that all things has impacted your understanding, knowledge, and practical test was that, right? Like growing those kids up is a hard sort of a deal, and I know as a mother it's never easy. I have a mother, I know how hard it is to raise kids anywhere. I know it's not easy. So tell me about that experience. And I heard that for a lot of people that is a very transformative yet sometimes traumatic experience to bring kids up.
It is so transformative because It changes you from a selfish person. Um, you're very concerned with yourself, and when you have children, hopefully, it completely changes you to care so deeply for another.
Selfless,
It's
selfless.
yeah, yeah, not completely, but because we have to care about ourselves too, but we
Yeah.
become much less selfish. And it's something that we really all want. We all want to be able to be that, and children do that to us from the minute they're born. So yeah, having a whole bunch of children has been amazing. I wasn't brought up in a home like that, and it's something I really wanted. And now I have a whole lot of grandchildren. And one other thing that makes it really special is that the elderly are so valued in this culture. Um, the elderly are considered to be are respected for their wisdom, for their life wisdom. And that's something that is lost in the more modern cultures.
So you have written publications for, like, what do you call that? News Week. That is what it is called. You have
Oh, oh
written
yeah.
news, yeah. So you have written publications for Newsplay Week, and what is that called? Another, I keep forgetting the name. Psychology Today. That is another thing
Oh,
you've written
Psychology Today,
stuff for.
right?
Yes.
And
So how do you so how do you like navigate like of this scientific, because that psychology is a scientific aspect, so how do you admit that scientific aspect of disclosure and spiritual exploration in the mainstream media? Like, how does that, like, when you write for them, what is changed from your traditional writing, and why did you do it? I mean, what was the purpose behind writing for those mainstream media houses?
oh, well, they were interested in my insights about different subjects. So I just offered my views and they were published. So I'm always happy because that's what I love to do. I just love to share the ancient wisdom with the world. Yeah, that's what I feel is one of my purposes for being here. Yeah.
Is that what you think your purpose is? That's what you think?
One of my purposes. We have so many purposes. Every person has so many reasons why they're here. I mean, there's this quote on my fridge. It says, "Here is a test to find out if your mission in life is complete. If you're alive, it isn't." But it's not just one. We have so many reasons for being here. We connect with many people every day, and those people connect with other people. We send out vibrations into the world and we have no idea how far they're going. So, yeah, we're all doing that. And if we're here and alive right now, there's a lot of important reasons why we're here. We're needed. Everybody's needed.
Everybody is needed, don't never think that you are not cared, you don't need it, because if you were not needed, you would not be here for a minute. You are needed,
Yes,
and even a single loss of life is a loss. Even a single
yes,
loss of a plant is a loss to existence. It does not appear so much to you, but for it, it is very important. And science says that even a plant which is destroyed here creates an impact till the sun. That's how impactful a plant can be. So imagine how much you are carrying, how much important you
yeah,
are here. So you have a great impact to do, and an individual can do so much thing. Any individual is capable of being Einstein. Any individual can be capable of being another Elon Musk. And just imagine having 10 Albert Einstein and 10 Elon Musk in the world. I mean, not exactly the same, but in that intellectual understanding of we have so many people like they're thinking how well society and the world could progress in that sense. And right now we don't have any Einstein, I believe. I mean, we are still thinking, when will such a great man be here so we can have such a great, because he just was just I mean, how long he has he gone? 70, 80 years? That's it. I mean, that's when he got so many. So it's the thing. And he also was like he was not just a scientist, that has to be, he was more also a spiritualist. That a lot of people don't know that, but he talked a lot about spirituality, energy, and a lot of his insights have created so much of a framework for a lot of people like you and me who try to look into the scientific understanding of all these subjects, right? And he was very particularly interested in the Eastern philosophy, to be honest, and also the Jewish culture. That's what I know. And he was obviously in German, so he was, very invested in this Jewish culture, so he knew a lot about them. But anyway, we'll get into something else. As we are wrapping this up, what is like that future plan that you are looking at, like what kind of a project, upcoming projects, and what kind of things you are doing right now, and you are like you are exploring at right now at this age, what things are you exploring, and you are looking at the future, what things are you thinking about? I'm kind of curious.
Oh, one thing I wanted to mention, I forgot to say that there is a more in-depth pleasure ladder on my website that you can download for free, a copy of it, and you could put it um, on your fridge or on your cabinet to remind you of the abundance of ways you can bring pleasure into your life, especially if you feel like overeating something. There's so many other ways you could bring lasting pleasure. So what what changed in my life recently is that my youngest children created that website and they started publishing my books. Up till now, for 40 books, no, with the 40th book, they started publishing it. Up until then, I was going to publishing houses. And so it's very exciting that my children have taken over because they want to spread the messages even further into the world. And they are also making videos. One other thing I do is I write video scripts for children's videos, and they're doing animations and they're making audiobooks. They're very creative, and we do a lot of presentations. So I'm having an awesome time with my children now, continuing to spread my messages in the world, and a lot more books are coming out. So we're working on books together, and it's a big joy to work with them.
And you are very excited, it seems, about this thing, that I mean, you are growing much more, and this is what it is. Just growing older is not growing old. Growing in wisdom, growing in yourself is actually the growth. I've seen so many people who are so older in age, but they are not really older. They are not, because they look older. They are not. They haven't seen the life really. They were so encapsulated in their own beliefs that they never looked out. They never looked in. They were just fixated on some ideas that they held it, and forever they lived their life upon that. So they don't have anything new that they can offer to us. Sometimes, most of them, they cannot, to be very, I have met such people. They cannot offer much to this world. But some of the younger people can give so many insights that some of these old people sometimes miss. This is shocking, to be in my opinion.
I think it's because people can get stuck in a certain physical existence, not recognizing their full potential as limitless spiritual beings. So if you think in a very
Right.
finite way, you can get very stuck. Yeah.
So, anything lastly you would like to leave the listeners with, like what are these, if I have to call that, tips and techniques, that if somebody is on the journey to know himself, trying to climb up the ladder also, what is those secret tips directly from you that you would like to share today on the show, that you think if somebody is starting out their journey they would require?
Let's say you have a food addiction or some other addiction, or identify what brings you more pleasure than eating, for instance. There's a show, My 600-Pound Life, where the people, they all say the same thing. Food is the only thing that gives me pleasure anymore. So recognize what else could give you pleasure. There's some people, they're so huge they can't get out of bed anymore, so they're just eating. But she could stuff envelopes. She could text somebody and send them a message about what she appreciates about them. The minute you do those things, like the big bag of potato chips stops calling your name. Right that moment, you have the power over that inner voice that's telling you, oh, if I finish this whole bag of potato chips, you end up feeling emptier when you finish it than you were to begin with. So to overcome a habit, you need a greater and more lasting pleasure to sub in. Sub in any of these natural pleasures that we were made for. A natural physical pleasure. Go out and move, turn on music, start dancing all by yourself. It uplifts you, and then you don't feel like finishing the whole container of ice cream. It works instantaneously. So just keep giving gratitude a try for the littlest thing, for a raisin, for a grape, for an orange, and just keep adding it to your life.
Thank you so much, Burkha, for today, joining us on in this conversation and sharing that great insight, and at the same time, so much of a inspiration, about your journey and all of that thing. I think we could not talk about so many things we could have. We have so much to cover, I mean, we could not cover, one person can be, right? Let's be honest. But, we covered so much of important things as well as needed things. And I would say this as we are wrapping this up, that spirituality is necessary, needed, but not the compulsory that you have to put it on your face. No, it should be a part of you without hindering your personal growth, because it is something embedded. It hasn't had to be enforced on you from somebody else, like, hey, they take this, the cake of spirituality, now eat it. This is not spirituality really. Spirituality is that inherent rise of that light that you showed, like in the beginning. That is what spirituality is, not some cake that will come from outside, made from somebody else, who makes it according to his understanding of taste. You can make a better cake if you know what you want. Nobody can make it better than you if you know what you want to eat. Every inch you can customize, because it's your cake, and at the end in life it's your, not somebody else. Don't live it in someone's else expectation. Live it as you want to live it till the end of the day. That would be a life lived. Very few people actually live. So be one of them. Don't be one of them who just lived. Be one of them who really lives. What do you think, Burka, about Burka, I said? And I think I'm really appreciative to sharing your time today, and giving all this insight. So thank you so much. And you would like to say something?
That's exactly right. If you want to thrive in life, we have to recognize that we are spiritual beings. And how do we nourish our hungry souls? By filling up on gratitude. It's that simple. It changes your entire life when you fill it with gratitude.
So thank you so much, Burka. And I would, I maybe we could should have another conversation very soon, later on, to talk about so many different things. So thank you so much for today, joining on this conversation.
It was such a pleasure to be with you. It's a joy to be with someone who resonates so much. I love it. Thank you.
And start living your best life.